What should the Bills do with Josh Allen in preseason, Luka? On one hand, there's no need to play him at all. What are we doing? Let's get him to the first game. That's the best way to guarantee he's healthy. Is we're going to take him out of an opportunity to get hit in live game action against other teams, particularly against players who might be trying to make a name for themselves. The other hand, Josh Allen has one receiver on his roster this year that he's completed a regular season pass to. Do you really want him going into week 1 against Arizona, having not played against other teams, throwing a ball to these players? Where do you fall on the what should Josh Allen's plan be in preseason?
I'm a no position changed here. I get, and it's the first time we've had now in really this new, probably 4 years of Josh Allen, where Josh Allen finally became a little bit of himself, right? 2019, it was still rough around the edges a little bit but 2019 to 2023, we obviously saw a Josh Allen where it's like, okay, he's finally number one, he's QB1, and he's excelled from there. This is the first time where now there are the question marks about his receivers, like you're bringing up, where he hasn't had game time with these individuals. He hasn't seen it at game speed in any capacity of what these guys can do against how he's going to see them, whatever it is. How is he going to see the field with these new guys he's throwing at? But I don't care. Josh Allen's Josh Allen. Like, Josh Allen will be able to figure out. I would rather it be a little rough around the edges come weeks 1, 2, and 3, even though the games matter, just because you're ensuring that he's safe. If you want to throw him in for a drive with all of your starting offensive line, of course, like as it always has and always will be with anyone starting QB, you always make sure all your protection is also there. But from there, it's simplistic in itself. You're just going through the motions. There's nothing that he needs to do when it comes to extending plays or doing anything like that, of course. Like, you are just, 1, 2, 3, drop back, hit it, and just off your plant foot. It's done. It's done. You're just running real basic stuff, keeping them in the rhythm, get the rust off, nothing more. If you do anything more than that, that's where I become concerned. Like, I don't even want to see them go as far as they did in the Pittsburgh preseason game last year, where the starters were out there for a significant number of minutes. Yeah. It just felt unnecessary. And overall, it's just like, I get that you want to get live reps and you can't simulate game speed. Preseason's not game speed to me, though. It almost, I'm not saying it's going to present itself some, false speed to it, or it's going to hinder anything. I do think there is value in it for a lot of stuff, but the one individual that I care the least about when it comes to preseason action to have that game speed action is Josh Allen, and I'm very, very okay with that. I think he's good enough that he can figure it out even when the games start mattering. That's fine. I think he is capable of elevating people around him, and as long as you have that ability, you're A-okay, and I don't think preseason snaps are going to make any difference realistically.
You mentioned that Pittsburgh game. He threw 10 passes in that game. And the week after against Chicago, also on the road, he threw 7 passes. Now, if you remember that game against Chicago, which if you don't feel bad, because I barely do, but I remember the offense came out on the first drive and looked super, super crisp. And I believe he only played 1 drive. I think it was like bing, bang, boom, bomb. Like, we're good.
Yeah.
It's funny they start off Pittsburgh, Chicago again, only in a different order. I really want to talk about who is it here? Jack's point here, and I think maybe you'll like it. You won't agree with it, but I think you'll hear where he's coming from. Jack Wakeham says, I'm first and foremost a rugby fan, and I've always found NFL preseason weird. In rugby preseason, it's all about getting your team up to proper game speed. To do that, starting players, and then we ran out of room on this, but starting players basically have to play at full speed. They have to hit. And he ended it by saying, if it's your time, it's your time. If you're going to get hurt, you're going to get hurt. Let's not try to avoid it. I hear where he's coming from. And I do think there's a reason why 2 years ago, in one of our first seasons of Bill's Chat Pod, the Steelers were on the road playing Cincinnati. Bengals were favored by a touchdown. Mitch Trubisky was starting the game, and you're like, no, Steelers are going to win that game. I was like, you're nuts. Like, no, week 1 Steelers. Now, last year, Steelers got pounded by the Niners. We got it. Week 1 Steelers, they are notorious for hitting as hard in camp as any team in the league, playing preseason as hard as you can. So week one comes, they are lathered up and they're ready to hit. I get where he's coming from, but I will just say you're setting yourself up, even if it's your time is your time and all that stuff. Any injury that happens in preseason feels so avoidable. And you mentioned it, Luka. It's not just Josh Allen. If Josh Allen's on the field, it also means Deion Dawkins better be on the field. Spencer Brown better be on the field. Torrance and Edwards and McGovern better be on the field. Some version of Knox and Kincaid, two good enough receivers, and James Cook, whatever. It can be a running back, you'll be fine. But you have all your guys out there, and you'd hate to have that be the moment that something goes wrong and you lose a really key player. So I understand what his point is. I totally respect where he's coming from, but it's not going to move me off of my spot where I really only need to see Josh Allen get maybe 2 or 3 drives this entire preseason. And, maybe that's like 2 drives against Pittsburgh and 1 drive against the Bears, whatever. I predict they will do what they did last year, which is he'll play about one half of one of these games, probably the Bears game coming up. And then maybe they'll play like a drive or 2 against the Steelers after that. And then they'll, t-shirts and hats game 3.
Yeah. I don't, McDermott and Bean have had this organization running in a certain way that has not changed, even as quarterback has changed, because technically McDermott came in and we all know Tyrod Taylor was the starting quarterback at that time. Like, it doesn't matter who's been there. It's been the same kind of process or same kind of motivations or same expectations on what they've, wanted out of preseason going into the regular season. It has not changed regardless of who it is under center, who they have at their disposal, whatever it is. I think they've operated under McDermott's done the same thing all those years. So why would it change? I think they definitely, McDermott feels like a guy that's, kind of a, what am I thinking of here? Like he loves habit. He loves consistency. He loves no change whatsoever. And I think that's going to stay even with a lot of turnover in the receiving group, as we've talked about, and so on and so forth. It's nothing will change. And to the point of this comment that we brought up earlier, it's like, yeah, when it's your time, it's your time. So, if an injury is coming in set number of snaps, kind of the counter argument is, then why the hell are you using up some of those counts in a meaningless game?
Yeah.
Like, if it's your time, it's your time. You don't ever want to see someone hurt, so don't take this out of context here. But I would rather see someone hurt in a meaningful game than a meaningless one. Like, that's the nature of it. Like, no, they should be out there. And by the way, there is another thought to it where it's in a preseason game. Yes, you want to get up to game speed. You got to kind of bang the pads together a little bit to feel it out and stuff. Sure. But you're not going at 100%. Everyone on that field understands the situation of it, I would imagine. Now, when you're in the 2s and 3s and those guys are fighting for roster spots, not even for necessarily just the team they're playing for and representing, but maybe anyone else around the league, those guys are going a little harder than the rest. But your starters are not going to be going 100%. And there's even something to be said when it comes to, if you're not giving it your all, potentially you could put yourself into a problematic situation, whether it's health wise or, just whatever it might be, that it's just, why bother even in the first place? So I can understand where that kind of thought process comes from, but overall, I don't agree with it whatsoever. And realistically, the preseason is meaningless football, and you don't take your crown jewel and just dangle it out there for something potentially to even remotely happen. So I don't agree with that. Just let it happen. Be very simple, even when you do let it happen. And go on make sure you are healthy week 1 when the games start mattering. That's it.
And everybody needs to keep in mind too, the Bills only have 3 preseason games, but they are doing scrimmages with the Steelers the week before that game. And sometimes those can be more valuable than games because you can script sessions instead of just playing whatever the game hands you. And you can also protect your quarterbacks, and you can decide if you want to have live tackling or not, and a much more protected environment. That also makes me think maybe Josh Allen shouldn't play too much in the Steelers game. Like, do you really want him out there running plays after the Steelers have seen all your plays in a basic sort of way all week? One more comment on this before we get on to the next topic. a lot of concern in the feedback we got from folks on how slow the Bills were perceived to have started last year. Our friends at Air Raid chimed in. They'd go one half, one quarter, and into the third quarter. That's like the 3 games. Tons of new weapons and a slow start on opening night last year. Let's get Josh Allen ramped up. And then along those lines, Buffalo Sports Chatter, honestly, with the way he started last year against New York, I consider a full half of the Pittsburgh preseason game. Josh Allen was atrocious against the Jets on that opening Monday night. I'm not denying that. I I don't come away from that game feeling like it was rust. I come away from that game feeling like he was trying to do way too much considering what the football gods had handed the Bills 4 plays into that game. Like Josh Allen could have handed the ball off all night and the Bills would have won that game. And he was on national TV. I think we all feel good about saying Aaron Rodgers is one of his idols in the sport. We're not talking about beliefs, we're talking about in the sport. And I think he was ramped up to play against Aaron Rodgers' first game. And that doesn't just, you've been looking forward to it all offseason. It doesn't just shut off because Aaron Rodgers goes out. And I think Josh Allen was kind of out there to make a statement that game. And the statement, unfortunately, was, holy cow, even when everything's going wrong for the other team, the opposing quarterback can still lose the game for them if he allows himself to. And that's what happened. I don't look at that as rust because the Bills came back the next 2 weeks and just blew the doors off of the Raiders and the Commanders before blowing the doors off of the Dolphins, scoring 50+ points, who had just scored 70 against the Broncos. So that's my thought on it. I don't necessarily live in that fear. Did you have a different read on that?
No, spot on. I talked about how when we were talking about defenses around the division, the Jets have the best defense in the division and have historically given Allen fits. So when you have all training camp, all preseason to game plan for that particular game, a defense that already seems to have that half leg up on you, then had all that prep time to really get things in line, to know what they needed to do to attack him and maybe even force him into thinking he needed to do stuff like that. I'm not saying the Jets were playing mind tricks on him, but overall, they clearly were confusing him. They were clearly just a leg up on him the entire game, because after that, why I come away that same way is exactly how you said it. They then followed that up with 3 beautiful games. The only time that season last year where everything seemed to be clicking well. The offense was great. I don't even think the offense was particularly fantastic in the Washington game.
Right.
But overall, they, as a team, they blew the doors off of them, and it was a complete dominant affair. And the Raiders, the Washington game, and then the Miami game, probably the best overall performance by the Bills last season. Those came immediately after that New York game. And I just don't see how that's a rust situation now that we do have kind of the benefit of hindsight, right? It's you look back at it and you reflect on it, and it's like, that wasn't rust. That wasn't, he needed to get more preseason action. That was quite literally, I'm with you. I believe it to be more so adrenaline ridden, national television. You just watched football Sunday happen the day before. You've been amped up for this game. It doesn't matter realistically what happened to Rodgers to open up that game. You're just ready to go to show the stage that you are ready to go. And it wasn't working out because you were playing a phenomenal defense that was prepped and ready to go against you. And realistically, that's just what happened. I don't know if it could have been as simple as handing the ball off the entire game to win.
Yeah,
I
a
think
little
the Jets are,
hyperbole there.
yeah, a little bit of tongue in cheek, but overall, it's definitely something where rust was not what went into that. I think it was something greater than that. And not to disrespect those Cardinals, but they don't have the New York Jets on defense, and that defense is definitely in a rebuild right now, where I'm not exactly fearful of it for Josh Allen and company. I think it's kind of a nice matchup for them. It's a game where if you wanted to compare apples to apples in week 1 to week 1, the Cardinals game is probably going to feel like a breeze compared to the Jets defense overall. It's probably going to make some great television, because I can probably see both offenses maybe having their days week 1, not to get too far ahead here, Josh, but overall, I'm not too fearful that Allen's going to have fits to deal with when it comes. Well, not literally fits, but he's not going to have issues dealing with the Cardinals defense come week 1.
Maybe Fitzgerald Jr., Marvin Harrison Jr.
Thanks for watching this clip from Bill's chat. For the full episode, you can find the link in the description. While you're here, we would love it if you took the time to like and subscribe. That way you'll never miss when we upload new content to Bill's chat on YouTube.